Please shall we rise to welcome His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The national anthem, please. We'll take the third stanza as our prayer this morning. Please, let's be seated. Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima GCON. Let me welcome the former President of Nigeria, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan GCFR, represented here by the former President. Hey, please. Thank you. Represented here by the former President of the Senate, His Excellency Senate Ayim Pius Ayim GCON. I'd like to welcome another former Senate President that is here, His Excellency Abubakar Bukola Saraki, CON. I welcome you, Your Excellency. Let me welcome His Excellency the Governor of Oyo State, an engineer who understands the strength of material, Engineer Sheyi Makinde. Your Excellency, I welcome you. The finest legal minds in the country. The finest legal minds in the country. Mr. Mohammed Adoke SAN, thank you for putting the truth on the front burner, and I welcome you this morning. Thank you very much. I welcome all of you, special guests, those that love Nigeria, those that love Nigeria, those that love the truth. I welcome all of you this morning, members of the diplomatic corps that are here, development partners that are here, stakeholders of the Nigerian projects that are here, all of you, I welcome you all. There's a saying that controversies of one era are viewed as sterile preoccupation by another. For knowledge alters what we seek. For knowledge alters what we seek, as well as what we find. Let me welcome all of you, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to the public presentation of a compelling book on one of Nigeria's most contentious oil deals. The book titled OPL Oil Block. Oil Prospecting License 245 covers a defined deep water oil offshore area of about 150 kilometers of the Niger Delta. The deal is complex and controversial and has been a subject that one of the men that brought resolution to all of this has also put his thoughts on paper for generations yet to read and know the truth. I welcome all of you to this amazing event. My name is Ebere Young, and I will not be alone here. One of our finest masters of ceremony, Andy Gabriel, will be here with me. But this is how we kick off. I'd like to welcome here, as the chairman of today's event, the former President of Nigeria, His Excellency Goodluck Jonathan GCFR, represented here by the former President of the Senate, His Excellency Ayim Pius Ayim GCON.
want to believe that the MC would have done justice to the protocol. So I may not strain myself going through that, but let me sincerely recognize and welcome the Vice President of Nigeria, His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON. So you're welcome. Kola Saraki, the presence of Governor Sheyi Makinde of Oyo State, the presence of Minister of Science and Technology, Mr. Uche Naji, the former Governor of Kano State, Alhaji Rabiu Kwankwaso, Justice of the Supreme Court, and the Mayor of Lafia. Please let me stand on the protocol already established by the MC. Before I speak, let me clarify that the chairman of this occasion is His Excellency President Goodluck Jonathan, GCFR. The chairman, realizing that he would not be able to return to Nigeria before or on this date, directed me to stand in for him. You will all agree with me that the shoes of President Jonathan are too large for me to step in. But however, for me, obeying his directive is mandatory. And so I am here in obedience to his directive. Because the chairman is out of the country, I did not have the privilege of getting a written remark from him. But I have his mandate to speak to the occasion. Let me therefore, on behalf of my former boss, President Goodluck Jonathan, welcome all of us to this auspicious occasion. And therefore, speaking on his behalf, I have just 3 observations or 3 points to make. 1, I have not read this book, nor have any knowledge of the content. But the subject matter of the book took place during the administration of President Goodluck Jonathan, and I am proud to state that I was part of that government. I am to say that President Jonathan is proud of his former Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Mr. Mohammed Adoke. President Jonathan indeed heartily congratulates Mr. Mohammed Adoke for the wisdom and the courage to put down his own side of the story in the book we're about to present today. On behalf of Mr. President, the former President of Nigeria, President Goodluck Jonathan, Mr. Adoke, I convey his congratulations. 2, to some people, this occasion may just be a book presentation, whereas to others, it may mean different things. But to me, it means a celebration of victory over persecution. Many of us here may recall that shortly after the administration of President Jonathan came to an end in 2015, they succeeded to what many people saw as a manhunt against key officers of the President Goodluck's administration. The author of this memoir, Mr. Mohammed Adoke, was the Attorney General of the Federation at that time. He was hunted across the globe, but today he's alive, he's healthy, he's here to tell his story. I use this occasion to congratulate Mr. Mohammed Adoke, my friend and my brother, for his doggedness, and to say that I am pleased to join you in celebrating this victory. To urge all of us to be conscious of the fact that power belongs to God. The best anyone who is blessed with the opportunity of a public office should do is to commit to that assignment and use the opportunity to uphold truth, justice, and fairness. I am to state, as always, that it is acknowledged among all civilizations that any society or organization that does not promote justice and fairness will neither have peace nor make progress. The sense of the author's effort in documenting his memoir is not only to put the record straight, but to contribute to the cause of excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today, ladies and gentlemen, today you are going to hear from the author himself. The book reviewer also is going to present the book in a manner that you will understand each line of that book. It is therefore not for me to say much, but to welcome all of you to this public presentation of the intriguing story of OPL245 from the perspective of Bello Adoke, CFR, SAN, former Minister of Justice and Attorney General. Make sure you get a copy of this book before you leave. I welcome all of you.
Can I call for a bigger round of applause for the former President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, GCFR, speaking there through the former President of the Senate, Senator Anyim Pius Anyim, GCON. We appreciate your comments. But Your Excellency, the Vice President, our special guest of honor, who else could tell the story much more than the man who was at the forefront and a principal actor, and of course what played out. Your Excellency, today, and of course what played out. Your Excellency, today, our promises to be very intellectually engaging and historically enriching. And I must say that we are being joined here by legal luminaries, statesmen, media professionals, and keen citizens of conscience, as well as royal fathers. And talking about royal fathers, Your Excellency, kindly permit me to recognize the presence of His Royal Highness, the Emir of Lafia and National State Council of Chiefs, Honorable Justice C.D. Bagay Mohammed I, GSC, retired CFR. Please, a warm round of applause for him, please. It is at this point in time, as we move, the man who's been saddled with the responsibility of giving us a keynote at this auspicious and momentous occasion is a very highly cerebral legal mind. In order not to waste too much of our time talking about him, I'd like you to please join me in welcoming with a very resounding applause Paul Erokoro, SAN, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Can we please welcome him to the podium as he makes his way here? It's taking quite a little while to get here because of the number of persons we have even standing on the walkway. Please pave way for him to be able to get here. I recognize your presence, former Inspector of Police, or MD Abubakar, and we also want to appreciate the presence of the former Principal Secretary to the former President. We have Alhaji Hassan Tukur here with us. Thank you very much for joining us. And J.D. Agba, PhD, Godi Agba, PhD, former minister. We welcome you, sir. Thank you. Paul Erokoro to make his way here. And I'd like that we please give him one more round of applause as he makes the stage.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, Your Excellencies, governors, Senate presidents, many of whom have been my clients in the past, and I hope there will be again. Yes. I don't know whether everybody here has written a book, but I can tell you it's a very hard thing to do. I wrote one at some point in my life, and because of the reaction of the publishers, I decided that there were too many books in the world anyway, and I would never write one again. They said, your book is both good and original, but the parts that are good are not original, and the parts that are original are not good. Since then, I realized that it's a very, very hard task. So, Bello, my good friend, I know you've achieved so much in the practice of the law, But when I read your first book, I was really, really, really impressed. And I wish you had written mine for me at that time. Now, Chief Kanu Agabi was supposed to have been standing on this podium, have an occupational hazard as lawyers. If the court is sitting, you can't leave, no matter how important that assignment is. And Mr. Agabi got caught up in court. And I was surprised to hear my name mentioned. But as Mr. Agabi's able disciple, let me just say that even though I have not read the book, I read excerpts of it. There's something called the post office scandal in the UK, described by that government as one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in the history of that great country. I can say the trauma that he went through as the federal government of Nigeria vilified him all over the world is one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in this country. I know that because I was one of Mr. Bello Adoke's lawyers. Started a long time ago, during the regime of General Sani Abacha. And that OPL was given out. President Obasanjo cancelled that lease and restored it. He cancelled that lease and restored it. Shell and the others went to court. We were at ixia of losing $2 billion, and you know that Nigeria usually loses its cases. And so the government decided that, look, we better settle this matter. This settlement started during General Obasanjo's time. And the reasoning was very simple. This is a very, very, very promising mining lease. We can make a lot of money. This block is very, very rich. Where are we in court suffering? And you should read the judgment of the English court that heaped praises on Mr. Bello Adoke for going out of his way as Attorney General to save his country so much embarrassment and huge costs. But surprising, this transaction that was anchored, JP Morgan and co, and some of the best names in the world praised it, the Nigerian government. On the one hand, the issuing statement, you will see all this in the book. The Attorney General of the Federation at that time said, we support this settlement, it's in the national interest. Nevertheless, we will accuse Mr. Adoke of corruption. Quite frankly, it's a commentary on the state of our nation that people who do things like this are not called to justice, are not called to account in any way. Reading the whole book, and I urge everybody to read it, and I'm sure that you will find lessons there for our country and for the rest of the world that will be worth learning. Thank you very, very much as I invite you all to read this book. Next.
He came to this podium with only his jacket, and he delivered a keynote. Let's put our hands together for him, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our book reviewer is a man of quality. He autographs any of his work with excellence. Journalist, TV presenter, and lawyer. My good friend, please welcome here, Dr. Ruben Abati.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, President Goodluck Jonathan, ably represented here, all Your Excellencies here present, Your Royal Majesties, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The only person in this hall who has read this book maybe twice. So I consider myself privileged indeed to have them be asked to come and do this review. Copies are on sale, so if you disagree with me, just copy. Okay, here we go. OPL245 is probably the most well-known oil block to be awarded by the Nigerian government, more for the legal disputes and international arbitrations with regard to its acquisition and ownership involving the federal government of Nigeria, Shell and Malabu Oil, as well as a large cast of actors across courts in Nigeria, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Italy. Whereas OPL245, a versatile deep-water offshore asset of the Niger Delta, was one of other similar licenses awarded to encourage indigenous participation in Nigeria's oil and gas sector. It is caught in a complex web of scandals, allegations of corruption, bribery, and so much melodrama in and out of the courtrooms. In an earlier book titled Burden of Service, Mohammed Adoke, SAN, had written, among other things, Prospecting License, or what is also known as Malabu Gate. This book, he focuses on the OPL245 in an extensive and comprehensive account of the allegations about his role, the burden that he has had to endure in terms of what he called, or the lies and more lies, I'm quoting him, that were told against him and his eventual vindication. Adoke's OPL245 is, by his own admission, therapeutic, a book that needed to through a documentation of facts and circumstances. Adoke was Nigeria's Attorney General and Minister of Justice, April 2010 to June 2015. At the time, the OPL245 saga began in 2003. He was not yet in government, nor was he either when the block was revoked by the Obasanjo government on July 2nd, 2001. Then when he was appointed Attorney General and Minister of Justice in 2010, OPL245 became one of the matters he inherited as Attorney General. It was during this period that the Jonathan administration confirmed the award of OPL245 to Malabu. This author is very clear in stating that the politicization of OPL245 was caused by former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and I quote, who woke up one morning and set OPL245 on fire. He revoked the block without giving any reasons, now resulting in a series of litigations involving the NNPC, Malabu, and Shell, which stalled the development of the asset. One of Adoke's first assignments as Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice was to help unpack the logjam, and he had advised that the 2006 settlement agreement was binding on the federal government of Nigeria. In the resolution agreement that was arrived at in April 2011, Shell, more specifically to proceed for further studies at the University of Leiden in the Netherlands. His travails soon began. He was accused of taking a bribe of 300 million naira, $2.2 million at the time, from the OPL245 agreement, or another 801 million, then cases of money laundering and abuse of office. He remained in exile from May 29, 2015 to December 19, 2019. In between, the economic and Italy, the US, and the UK, his apartment was raided in the Netherlands, his houses were searched in Nigeria, A warrant of arrest was issued against him internationally, leading to his arrest and detention for 35 days by Interpol in Dubai, 55 days in EFCC detention. He was even interrogated, resulting in his vindication. Thus, he has had to suffer for about 8 years with threats to his life and well-being. As he puts it, now I quote him. He says, when President Muhammad Buhari came to power in 2015, he chose to come after me. Agreed that he misruled Nigeria for 8 years, but he at least got distinction in one thing, destroying my name. He turned me to the poster boy of a scandal that never was. I was arrested and detained in the UAE for 35 days. I was arrested and detained for another 55 days in Nigeria by the EFCC. Anywhere my name is mentioned today, it is Malabo and OPL245 that usually come to mind, thanks to Buhari, who harbored a collection of bitter feelings against me for reasons best known to him, end of quote. In this book, Adoke fights back, relying on his vindication at every turn by the courts. The book is divided into 5 parts and 26 chapters. It's a cold-blooded, no-holds-barred response to everyone whom he considers as having played an unkind role in the course of his travails. This may well end up as a very controversial book, as the affected persons and institutions will simply read the book and accept guilt. A few examples may perhaps convey an impression of this book's flavor. I'm quoting him, I'm not the one saying so. Nigerians, an apology for blatantly lying, another quote. He says, and I quote again, Obasanjo failed the ultimate leadership test. And I quote, it was disingenuous of Obasanjo to have tried to distort historical facts. On President Buhari, he observes that he, Buhari, was driven by vengeance. Vengeance for the Abacha family. He believed I was unfair to the Abachas in the OPL245 deal. Having established what he calls intrigue and vendetta in the first part of the book, part 2, titled A Den of the Famous, is a systematic squaring of those he considers his traducers, namely President Muhammadu Buhari, a friend and defender of the Abacha family, Professor John Padden, author, he says, of the shabby biography of Muhammadu Buhari, Mohammed Sani or Mohammed Abacha, who claims he owns 50% of Malabo, which he did not pay for, and yet wanted a cut from the Malabo windfall. Others, who seem to have been part of the grand conspiracy against Adoke, include Professor Yemi Osinbajo and his lawyer friend, Olabode Johnson, whose firm, and I quote, whose firm and partners were targeting a commission of between 5 and 30%, 35%. Mr. Abubakar Malami, Adoke's successor as AGF, UK-based Global Witness, an Italian prosecutor called Fabio Do Pasquale, Header Resource Center, a Nigerian NGO working with Global Witness, Mr. Rislanuddin Mohammed, who lied, Sahara Reporter, which Adoke calls an anything goes website, all involved in character assassination and the mudslinging agenda. Chapter 8, titled The Ruthless Enforcer, is a detailed review of the role of the EFCC under Mr. Ibrahim Magu in the author's travails, what he calls the Magu pandemic. He's even dismissed as one low-life, miserable person. Adoke does not pull his punches. Large portions of this book must have been written in a fit of anger. Professor Yemi Osinbajo is labeled inflicted Mr. Clean, that's another quote, who likes to be seen as the epitome of transparency, honesty, and Italy, the UK, and the pronouncements by the courts in Nigeria. Lawyers, students of case, prosecutors, and the general reader will find a lot that is instructive in this part of the book. The reporting is robust, the documentation is extensive and illuminating about how the path to justice may be taught to us. Justice for the accused, justice for the jury, and justice for society. It is difficult to see, however, how justice has been done to society in the case of OPL245. Beyond the arrested development of the asset, it is curious, as this author asserts, that OPL245 litigation was a very lucrative oil block, as lucrative as OPL245 itself for lawyers and their allies in the Buhari administration. That is a monumental waste of resources. The book is brought to a close with reflections and recollections. Chapter 26 opens with a telling statement. I was discharged and acquitted, but the scars remain. And this is perhaps understandable given the picture of man's wickedness to man that Adoke paints, to rise to an esteemed position of being the chief law officer of the Federation, only to be humiliated by, I quote again, a desperate, vicious, and ruthless government, Adoke's description of Buhari's government. There are four subtexts running through the entire book. The first is how the institutions of state, such as the EFCC and the judiciary, can be used to pursue unmitigated acts of persecution. The second is the fickleness of the human mind and this deep-seated hatred that some nurse in their minds. The fourth is how the treatment that people like Adoke, who serve in government, receive, discourages many other public-minded, public-spirited persons from serving their country. Over 12 years of litigation upon litigation over OPL245 further raises questions about the quality of leadership in Nigeria. And so Adoke asks, who truly shortchanged Nigeria between Adoke and Buhari? Readers of this book may well find the boy from Nagazi, Mohammed Adoke, SAN, CFR, lawyer, now author and public intellectual, should find some healing for his scars if his story, as told here, is warmly received by those to whom it may concern. The book, by those to whom it may concern. The book has strong merit. Thank you. Thank you.
Delivered and scholarly dawn. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Reuben Abati. One more round of applause for him. Recall that he was also a special advisor to the erstwhile President Goodluck Jonathan, on media and publicity, so he actually was in the forefront of these as well. But of course, this seminal work, authored by none other than Mohammed Adoke, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, CFR, former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, also do us the honor of being the very first person saddled with the responsibility of presenting this book publicly. I'd like to invite the very great engineer who has turned Ibadan and Oyo State indeed around, His Excellency Engineer Seyi Makinde, the Executive Governor of Oyo State, who is not only a seasoned engineer, but a successful entrepreneur. He is a governor who has also distinguished himself as a beacon of progressive leadership, good governance, and people-centered policies. Please join me in welcoming the Governor of Oyo State, His Excellency Engineer Seyi Makinde. That applause for him can come even louder and better. Your Excellency, sir.
Sorry, I need a copy of the book. Well, while they are bringing the copy of the book, let me also stand on the already established protocol, but I cannot do without specially recognizing my boss, the Vice President of the Federal, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON. Because for governors, we report to the Vice President, we go to the National Economic Council, and the VP is the chairman. We didn't consult one another, but if you look at my boss and myself, we wore the same thing, from head to toe, brown. That is how we're feeling today. And let me also specially recognize the former governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai. Oh, he was recognized, okay. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. Well, before I go into presenting the book, they've said there are so many things about the author, Mohammed Adoke, SAN. I call him Malam B. But of a book that revisits one of the most scrutinized transactions in Nigeria's petroleum history, OPL245, inside story of the $1.3 billion Nigerian oil block. That's a lot of money, $1.3 billion. So I'm not surprised that it generated a lot of interest. Well, this book, to me, is not simply a retrospective on a deal. It is a personal testimony from someone who held public trust and bore institutional responsibility during a turbulent and legally fraught moment in our nation's oil and gas sector. Well, we live in a country where records are sparse, where narratives are quickly lost in headlines, and where legal complexity. In this context, Malam B's decision to document his side of the story is not just brave, because history must not only be recorded, it must also be contested, clarified, and understood. Even a Bible proverb says, the first to present his case seems right until someone comes forward and cross-examines.